Let it play. Let it play. Let it play. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Celtics Talk Weekly Post Game Show. I guess this one isn't really post game; it's the day after. However, we're still talking C's versus Pacers game one last night, guys. I mean, it was truly one of the more memorable Celtics playoff games in a long time. One of the most memorable playoff games. The Celtics, obviously, on their heels with about 10 seconds left, and Jaylen Brown was able to send the game into overtime, which eventually the Boston Celtics walked away with a 133-128 victory at home in game one of the Eastern Conference Finals. Franco, a lot to talk about. Obviously, we got the Jaylen Brown getting snubbed out of the All-NBA news as well. We can talk about that alongside game one. However, we're going to talk about game one here. You know the drill, your initial thoughts, reactions, and takeaways from game one.
We knew this was going to be the first fight that, or the final fight that the Pacers were going to be able to throw, and going into from game 7. This was going to be the best effort that you're going to get from the Pacers. They were feeling hot. They were able to keep up with us even after the first quarter when we started off 12-0, and I thought we were going to run away with the game right off the bat, but Indiana found a way to keep on taking advantage of Celtics' defensive errors, and they were able to keep themselves within the game, taking the lead at the end of it. And we were seeing the Celtics in a position that we're not used to seeing them in, which is playing from behind and being in those late game situations where you need to hit that game-winning shot, you need to draw up that play, you need to call that timeout. And it was a great situation to see the Boston Celtics in, because we were able to see that they can handle that pressure of being in the final seconds of a game and knowing that they need to send it to overtime, and then being able to finish the game in overtime is a huge statement, especially at home. And I think that this was probably when we look back at the season, this playoff run, this will definitely be the game that is probably the most highlighted.
I mean, this is what I'm going to say. Something we talked about in the series preview podcast. If you haven't listened to it, you should go listen to it. Something you said in particular was the Celtics defense. They had to play defense, and they did it in game one. And Indiana is a very good offensive team. Despite being the 6th seed, they were the second best, or I believe second best offense in the NBA. They play quick, they're talented, they're efficient, they're very good on the offensive side of the basketball. So I think Boston lacked that defense in game one. And again, like we said, we expected Indiana to come out firing. Game one, they felt like they could steal one. They thought it was going to be game one. They're coming off a hot shooting night. Boston, yes, they've had rest, but in this particular situation, that hurts you. Indiana hasn't played these like rigorous 7-game series, right? It really hasn't been like that. Their legs aren't going to go yet. So, I thought, Indiana, competed very well, and Boston allowed that to happen. But I will say this was a win I really wanted to see, a game like this, because Boston has not played in many games like this all year long. And when they haven't necessarily succeeded in those moments. They've kind of struggled when the game has gotten close down the stretch, or when they've been losing in the last minute. However, they were able to make big shots, and I think that says a lot about the Celtics. And I think it's a little ridiculous that they are getting negative outlook on game one, because yes, did they play perfect? No. Did they still win? Yes. And in the playoffs, that's really what matters. Did you win? Because yes, we could sit here and nitpick, oh, the Celtics didn't do this, the Celtics didn't do that. But in reality, they won. They were the team that executed down to the stretch. They brought it to overtime, and they were able to, in overtime, win. So, I mean, that's how I see it. I think it would be incredibly unfair to what the Celtics were able to accomplish in game one to sit here and say, oh, well, you know what? They're playing No, the Pacers are in the Eastern Conference Finals, man. They just beat the 2 seed. Like this is a team that is very talented. They can beat you if you sleep. So,
Right.
to me, was it the most perfect, beautiful win? No. But was it a win at home in the playoffs? Yes. And I think anytime you get a win in the playoffs at home in game one and you're up in the series is a good place to be in. And, I think that's what you have to look at. So, something else that I liked, Franco, and I'm kind of interested to hear what you have to hear or have to say about it. And this is more so game two talk, but the post game interviews, the Celtics players were very aware that they played very poorly. And I think
Right.
that a lot about this team, that even in a win, you can address that. Listen, they still have to respond because they did not come out great.
Yeah, I think that this game was one that they had to really strive for, and we have to give Indiana props. This was an absolute dogfight, and we knew this was gonna be probably the toughest series that the Celtics are gonna see up to this point.
Right.
And they're still healthy, and we have to accredit their depth, and I think that was one of the major factors in them being able to maintain being in the game, is having Obi Toppin and TJ McConnell coming off and the bench and contributing for them. And I think the Celtics will be able to start to find more of that over time, but I think that they kind of grew complacent at times, and there were times that the defense was giving Indiana those open looks when Indiana is one of the more efficient shooters in the league,
Right.
especially coming off the performance they had on Game 7 against the Knicks. I
Right.
I think being able to close out on that and, tightening up on the defensive end, but being able to get into a shootout with the Indiana Pacers is a huge statement to how good this Boston Celtics team is, because they could beat them either way,
And
because
that's what
we
you
were.
said in the
Yeah,
podcast was that, listen, like if you get into a shootout with this Pacers team, it's going to get dicey. And that's what happened. Things got dicey.
yeah, we ended up going to overtime, and we was it was very close to, I think, having home court advantage during that game was one of the major factors in what kept the Celtics pushing forward, and being able to have that crowd behind them was definitely a bonus. And I think that there were a lot of iffy calls throughout the game, but being able to just keep that controlled showed a lot of maturity from this team, and not the moment didn't get too big for this team, and that's what people have been saying about the Boston Celtics, and that's been the biggest thing that people have been holding against them, is can they perform when the lights on them.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, you look at game one, if you look at the box score, if we're box score watching, no way should the Pacers have lost that game. No way. I mean,
Right.
like, let's go down the list for Indiana. They got 24 from Siakam, 23 from Turner, 25 from Halliburton, 15 from Obi Toppin, 13 from TJ McConnell. They got 14 from Neesmith and 12 from Nembhard. They had 7 players over 12 or more points, and they didn't win. Like, on the flip side, Boston, you had 20 senior. All the starters were over 15, but the bench gave you nothing. So it's like,
Yeah.
this is what we talked about, was that, what really, in my opinion, Boston, for the first time in a long time, won this game with experience. They were there. They had been there before. Indiana hadn't. And it was very evident that that was the case with the turnover numbers. I mean, 20 turnovers from the Indiana Pacers, a team that handles the basketball very, very well, just shows you that, listen, they're on a stage that they've never been to before. And Boston has. And I think in the long run, that's what's going to, yes, the talent dispersity of between the two teams really is. I mean, the Celtics got bigger names, more talent, right? Whatever it is. But Boston's been there. Indiana hasn't. And that showed in game one. It was clear as day that the Indiana Pacers team, when the game got close, they had no idea what to do. And, I think that was the difference. So, I do think that Boston can improve. No doubt about it. I mean, going to overtime at home against Indiana is never what you want to do, but they were able to win, and I think that's what's important here, right? That doesn't matter how. It matters. What matters is you got the win in the win column. So, you look at the Celtics side of the box score, right? Very, very great performance from the starters. Now, Al Horford, I want to talk about first. He was shooting everything, and you don't see that a lot from Al. And I will say I didn't like it. I did not like it. 12 threes from Al Horford is a number that you should never, ever, ever see. So, what do you think Al needs to do in game 2, Franco, that he did not do in game 1? Obviously, make shots is the obvious answer because that needs to happen too.
I think Al is playing. I think he's giving it all he has on the court right now, and it's very evident he's making very small plays that are not noticed on the box score. But I think what he was getting were a lot of open looks and mismatches during people sliding on Tatum, and he was. I would say a lot of those 3-point shots were open, and they weren't shots that I was watching him hoist up, and I was like, "Oh, he's most likely gonna miss this." I thought they were open looks. However, that is not what you need Al Horford to do. They would much. That's kind of what the Indiana Pacers game plan probably was to have them have Al Horford try to make every open 3-pointer in the game, and if it led to being Tatum or Jaylen Brown, they would have ended up being in the same boat and would have allowed the Celtics to shoot 3-pointers all day. I think using Al in a more big man role is necessary because of the lack of depth, and I don't think Luke Cornett did a solid job when he was in, but he's obviously not going to be the answer against Miles Turner and Pascal Siakam.
Well,
So
I want to jump in here because
yeah,
Luke Cornett is a topic that needs to be talked about. He can't play in this series. He cannot
right.
play. I love Luke, and he's done a phenomenal job up until this point, but this is not the series for him. And you would be setting Luke Cornett up for failure by playing him. And obviously Tillman was missing the game due to personal reasons. All of our best wishes go out to Tillman and his family. We hope that he can come back for game 2. However, we understand if he can't. However, if he is able to suit up, gosh, excuse me, it needs to be Tillman. It needs
Right.
to be Tillman. This is not a Luke Cornett series. And I think it was so obvious. Turner had 18 points in the first half on all this. I mean, just the athleticism difference is just too. I mean, it needs to be Tillman, Franco. It does.
Yeah, I think that Kristaps being out on the court is definitely going to be a plus against this Indiana Pacers team. Obviously, you don't want to rush him in, but someone's going to be helping out Al Horford in the minutes category. It's never a great sign when you have Al Horford playing 40 minutes in a playoff game.
Right. And we will say the big man depth, obviously, with the injury to Kristaps Porzingis and the unfortunate events in which Tillman is going through right now, you didn't have much to work with.
Right.
However, honestly, Indiana's not like this super big, dominant interior team. If I'm Joe Mazzulla, I'm looking like the small ball route where you got Tatum playing the 5, and you're saying, Tatum, you need to crash the glass because it can't work. It can't. It won't. Because they will kill you in those minutes where Luke Cornett's out there. And that's no disrespect to Luke Cornett. He's just a utility big man. He's supposed to be used in situations where that he has the advantage of. And that's not this series. So I'll be interested to see what Joe does. You ask me, I think Joe's done a phenomenal job this run. That was another thing I want to talk about. We can talk about it now. Honestly, it was Joe Mazzulla. He's killing it. He's killing it. He looks composed. He looks like he's been there before. He's doing a phenomenal job. He called the couple timeouts there at the end of the game. He drew up that play for Brown. That's what we were asking for in the regular season, right? That's why we say Joe called it, because teams are better at home out of the timeout with a drawn up play. He was doing it. His timeouts have been great. I think his adjustments have been great. I think his schemes have been great. So, Franco, for you, Mazzulla, what has he been showing you? I named a couple things, but is there anything else in particular that has been, really Joe Mazzulla's shown and impressed you?
Maturity. He's showing that this is his second year around. First year was very deer in headlights, Joe Mazzulla. We saw flashes of deer in headlights, Joe Mazzulla during the regular season, during some poor stretches, but it was never something we worried about, especially something we need to thank is the Celtics assistant coaching staff. I mean, right now, I think there are most likely going to be 3 to 4 head coaches on the Celtics staff that are going to be head coaches or lead assistant coaches elsewhere.
Right. Well,
I
Charles
think
Lee got the job over in Charlotte.
Charlotte.
Right.
I mean, Sam Cassell is probably going to be phoning a few calls at the end of the season. I wouldn't even doubt Stoudemire or Van Gundy would be out of the conversation for some teams, but that's looking forward. But I think that just shows that the great staff that they've put around him, and I think that it's all starting to shine through for him. I think the moment is he's ready for the moment. I feel like he's done a fantastic job of preparing for this year, and
Right.
I think he was prepared for Indiana and game plan wise, and he was able to maintain composure at the end of the game and didn't drop a stupid step back Jason Tatum 3-pointer.
Right. And he put his positions in players to succeed. And that is something that I've been looking at for Joe. Can he do that? Is he able? Does he have the feel to the game to do that? And he's been doing that. So for me, my biggest concern with the Celtics in winning a championship were situations like last night. And they showed me, no, we can do this. Because mind you, Franco, we talk about experience here tonight, right? Celtics got more experience than everyone outside of Kyrie Irving. They will out-experience everyone by a landslide. They have been to multiple conference finals. They have been to a championship. Jrue Holiday is one of 1 or 2 players in this postseason run to have a ring. The Celtics have experience. The Pacers don't. The Timberwolves, they don't. The Mavericks, they got some with Kyrie, right? They got a couple guys that have been some deep playoff runs. Luka's been to a conference finals before, but nothing compared to what Boston has been through, the situations they have been in, the environments they have played in, seeing Steph Curry in the NBA finals and that Golden State Warriors team, right? Going up, dueling LeBron in the conference finals. These guys have really seen it all. They have beaten the defending champs at home. They have beaten the defending champs on the road. This team is battle tested. And the biggest question mark with this team, the 2 biggest question marks with this team coming into the postseason, really for a majority of us, right, was Joe Mazzulla. Is he ready to take that championship step? He has so far answered that question. That is yes. The next one was, when the Celtics are in late game situations, are they going to be composed enough to answer the call and to succeed in those situations? From what we have seen so far, all evidence points to yes, they can. And I think that is something that you need to be happy about as a Celtics fan. Yes, the game was close. Yes, it didn't look great at times. But we did the one thing that everyone feared we couldn't do, and that is execute in the playoffs, execute in crucial moments. And I think, to me, is the most important thing. And I think, for me, that was our best win of the season. It was better than, maybe, again, the Minnesota game was great, but it was better than those 30-point wins, the 50-point wins, the 25-point wins against Miami, the Warriors game. That was the best one, because that showed you something out of the Celtics that you had been looking for a really long time. So do they have things they have to clean up for game 2? Absolutely. You can't play many more games like that against Indiana and being pretty, right? Indiana will extend the series if you keep playing like that. However, they were able to walk away with the win in a situation they were not tested on, or you didn't really have the answers yet. So, very, very good win for the Celtics. A player we have to talk about next is Jrue Holiday. Holiday was the best player on the court Tatum had a great game, in my opinion. 36, 12, and 4, 3 steals as well. Didn't shoot the ball very efficiently. 46 from the floor isn't the worst. 2 of 8 from behind the arc. That's really where Tatum has been struggling. It hasn't really been from the floor. It's been from just behind the arc. His three-pointer really isn't there. He's getting to the paint. Has been a force inside. But back to Jrue Holiday, 28 points, 7 rebounds, 8 assists, 3 steals. He was a +7 on the game. Now, this was the best game Jrue Holiday has ever played in a Celtics uniform, and it wasn't close. Jrue Holiday, as clutch as Jaylen Brown was, and as clutch as Jason Tatum was in the overtime and Brown in the fourth quarter, Holiday was the guy keeping you afloat. He was making the winning plays. And that right there, Franco, is why we brought in Jrue Holiday, for that exact reason. He's a guy that in the playoffs is going to answer the call, and he answered the call in game 1.
Yeah, it was good to have him on our side because I was having flashbacks to when he was in Milwaukee against us.
Right.
Making those key plays that get the Bucks to that championship that season that they won. I think that he is one of the better, if not best, playoff performers on the Celtics right now, just because of his experience. I think what he brings to the game is so beyond a stat sheet, and what he was able to do last night on the offensive side is something that we knew he had within him, but it wasn't unlocked during the regular season. We would have seen nights that he would be shooting sub 10 shots from the field goal range and wouldn't be shooting at all. He would be more conservative. I think they are allowing him to release the reins and be able to play his ball. I think putting him on the best player against Tyrese Halliburton was almost locking him down. I think Tyrese Halliburton could have had a much bigger if Jrue Holiday wasn't guarding him. I've been saying this all season. I think Jrue Holiday is what we needed on this team. He is Marcus Smart that makes the winning plays without screwing up and making the dud ones as well.
I loved everything I saw from Jrue. You nailed it. That's who he is. That's why you brought him here. And he hadn't shown us much offensively scoring the basketball throughout the first 82 of the regular season. And really in the first 2 rounds of the postseason. But his ability to stay ready, his ability to step up when he needed to step up. And he was the reason the Celtics won game 1. Like I said, I mean, yes, Tatum and Brown made the plays in overtime and late in the fourth, but Jrue was the guy that was keeping them afloat, like I said earlier. So, for me, Jrue, phenomenal defensive job on Tyrese Halliburton, obviously made the play that turned the ball over that needed to give the Celtics a chance. He was great. He was phenomenal. And, his utility knife ability is something that I think was not talked about enough in the regular season. We kind of, we reached into the bag a little bit, but 7 rebounds, 8 assists, 3 steals. I mean, this dude was an all-star just last year, and he's not talked about at all within the Celtics. So, what I've said, I hate to toot my own horn here, Franco, but Jrue Holiday has been my X factor for the Celtics team all year long, because of the just uniqueness of what you can do with them. And I think you saw that in game 1. So, if Drew's giving you that, they're tough to beat, no matter what everyone else is giving you, because of how high he can turn it up, right? Like you can see him play a role, and then all of a sudden he looks like, if you were not a fan of basketball and just watching the game, you might think he's the best player out there on the court. And I think that ability to have that is very impressive out of Jrue Holiday. So again, Jrue, great game. Get best game of the year, best game of the playoffs, really, from any Celtics player so far. Next up, before we talk about the All-NBA snub, obviously Tatum made the first team. Congrats to him, 3rd consecutive year. We got to talk about the Jays in game 1 sense. So, Franco, the Jays made all the crucial plays down the stretch on the offensive side of the ball. Tatum last night, 36 points, 12 rebounds, 4 assists. Jaylen Brown had himself a very good game as well. 26, 7, and 5, 3 steals as well. 50% from the floor, 1 of 4 from downtown. Now, I was not a fan of what I was seeing from Jaylen Brown in the last 3 minutes. And then the last 30 seconds happened and it just erased all of that. So goes back to the saying we used to have in the regular season, winning cures everything, because those last 3 minutes from Jaylen Brown, it's a whole different conversation. However, he made up for it. He made the big play. So credit goes to him. Tatum on the other end, 36 points, like I said, a little bit more dominant offensive showing. We kind of expected this coming into against Indiana. We understand that no one really on the Indiana side of the ball can defend Jason Tatum and stick him and give him trouble. So he's going to be able to walk into these 30-point games, efficient or not. However, what did you see from the Jays that you liked, and what did you see from the Jays that you didn't necessarily love?
I think that often the bat they were playing a very up tempo style when when they were on that 12-0 run to start the game. I think that the team started to focus too much on sharing the ball, and that's a crazy thing to say, but it seemed like they wanted to make sure everyone was getting a piece of the pie in on the shooting chart, which I don't think the Celtics need. I think that spreading the ball as to everyone on design plays is necessary, but I think that getting more of a consistent run from Jason Tatum, I really like the fact that he was able to get to the free throw line 12 times. That shows an aggressive style of play, especially when you have Pascal Siakam and Aaron Nesmith on you. I think either or you can take that to the paint and either draw a foul, or Pascal's a more solid interior defender, but I think I'll take Jason Tatum in a one-on-one ISO drive.
12 out of 10 times.
Yeah, I think that they're doing a fantastic job of spreading that around, but I think Jaylen Brown has been a lot more calculated. I think that he is more when the moment's right for him to take it. I think he was getting a lot of great shots at the rim. I think his off-ball movement has been something that's been under the radar during game one. He was making the cuts to get to the rim. It almost seemed like the team was cherry picking the Indiana Pacers at the beginning of the game.
Right.
How they were just being that quick off transition and hucking the ball up the court after they got the rebound. I think that the Celtics need to stick to more of that, and I think that we'll be able to move on from. I don't think we'll see if the Celtics pick up on the defensive end, and I don't think we're going to see the Indiana Pacers make the too many more games. The Celtics sweat too many more games like this.
I will say it was bumpy for the Jays. They made the winning plays. That's what matters to me. What also matters to me that they were aggressive. And again, when the Jays are aggressive, they are incredibly difficult to beat because of their size, their frame, their athleticism, their whole bag of tricks they can get into when they're being aggressive really sets the other team up for a difficult 48 minutes of basketball. I thought they did that. Tatum did not let his 3-point shooting affect his night. I think that was huge. And I think Jaylen Brown was able to stay the course, which was also huge. He knocked down some clutch free throws. He made the clutch steal. He knocked down the clutch shot to go into overtime. And then in overtime, Jason Tatum delivered. And that is what you want to see out of them. I would way rather see the first 4 minutes of the last 5 be shaky and the last minute be good than the first 4 minutes of the last 5 be awesome and the last minute of the 5 be terrible. So I think, that is a very positive way to look at it. I've been seeing some crazy talk online and on ESPN and from Perk, and Perk likes to run his mouth about, Tatum should have had 50 and Brown and the Celtics need to show us more. Listen, the Celtics, right, are 9-2 in the postseason. They are 71-18 over the course of this year. They are dominant. So whatever any of the media has to say about this team, I don't care. That's where I'm at with the Jays and the Celtics and all that driven media hate that has been just absolutely pushed onto the Celtics team. That for some reason, for some weird reason, the Denver Nuggets last year, Franco, cannot beat a singular team with over 50 wins in a regular season. And all of a sudden, that championship isn't, so again, as a Celtics fan, it doesn't matter. Tatum and Brown, they stepped up when they needed to last night. But all NBA teams came out tonight, and there was some controversial things that happened in it. And one of them being, sorry, there's a fly that keeps flying around. I don't know if I think you can see it on the screen. One of them being Jaylen Brown not making all NBA team. So let's review the all NBA teams real quick. So first team, we have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Jason Tatum, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Nikola Jokic, and I'm missing someone. Who am I missing? Giannis, Jokic, Tatum, Luka.
Was it Luka?
Luka, yeah. Yes. First team. I love that first team. Those are the 5 best players in the NBA. No doubt about it. Second team, Anthony Edwards, Jalen Brunson, Kawhi Leonard, Kevin Durant, Anthony Davis. I think that's solid. Personally speaking, I don't think Anthony Davis or Kawhi Leonard had a all NBA second team year. I think second team, you have to weigh in success. You look at Jalen Brunson. Why was Jalen Brunson so, highly regarded this year? Because he was doing what he was doing in pushing wins, right? He was succeeding. He was winning games for his team. I can't say the same with Anthony Davis. I could say the same with Kawhi, but unfortunately he got hurt. Third team. This third team is what I really have a problem with. Steph Curry, Devin Booker, Tyrese Halliburton, LeBron James, and Domantas Sabonis. I mean, Jaylen Brown should have made all NBA team over 4 out of those 5 guys. The only guy I would say that 100% I think was better than Brown this year was Sabonis. I think Sabonis was doing some phenomenal things for those Kings. He wasn't winning, but he was doing everything in his power to help Sacramento win in an incredibly crowded Western Conference. Devin Booker is not better than Jaylen Brown last year or this past year. He did not have a better regular season in any world than Jaylen Brown did. Steph Curry, all time, he's better than Jaylen Brown. No, right? I'm not saying that. But last season, this season, Jaylen Brown did way more for his team in winning basketball games, in my opinion, than Steph Curry did. LeBron James, I mean, are you kidding me? Are you joking? I'm sorry, I get it. It's LeBron, but really over Jaylen Brown this year? I mean, Jaylen Brown was the second best player on one of the greatest offensive and successful teams we have ever seen in NBA history. So let's talk about this real quick, Franco. We're a self-proclaimed super team, the Boston Celtics, right? We're a super team, but we have 2 All-Stars and only 1 player on All-NBA. So where is the recognition that Jaylen Brown, that Kristaps Porzingis, that Derek White, that Drew Holiday, that they should be receiving? Because if I can remember correctly, Klay Thompson was all NBA players back on those Warriors teams, right? It was no question. Draymond was just right in every single time for all defensive first team. I mean, he was a right in for the All-Star team just 2 years ago when the Warriors were buzzing. So why is it that for some reason, when the Boston Celtics now have this self-proclaimed super team that the media is actually, believe it or not, is kind of using it against them now. They aren't saying, oh my God, look how good this team is. They're like, oh my God, they're a super team. Look. But yet there's no recognition. So that's what's confusing to me. I don't get that.
It's hiding behind the banner. I think once they hang up the banner, I think we'll have those talks where we're pressing the All-Star button on all 5 of the Celtics lineup, and I think every single one of them will be in the conversation. If not, I think 3 to 4 of them could be on the All-Star roster next year. And I think the Celtics are going to be deserving of that push after they get the championship. They have done everything except for win the dance. I think that's what the media, I think that's what the voting has held against them. I think it's prove it and then you can gain all the flowers in the world. But I honestly am a fan, and not a fan of it, but I'm one of those people who always wants something to put on the pin board and something to motivate them. I think that will fire up Jaylen Brown even further
Mhm.
in this playoff push. I think him not making that third All NBA team is just going to be even more fuel to the flame for him. I think he's going to possibly catch on fire. I think we'll see that performance from him that really solidifies him as a top 30 player in the or a top 20 player in the NBA.
Well,
Um,
I will say this: if you're a betting man, the Jaylen Brown over next game might be the freest bet of all time because
right.
you're right. I mean, Bullets, and you make a good point. Um, it's hiding behind the banner. I really like that saying. Because you're right. It is the second they win a ring, all bets about this team are off. You can't say anything else. So I really like that point. That was that was really the reason. Probably is they haven't done it and they've been so close. But no, yeah, Jaylen Brown over points. If you're a better, I mean, you should hammer that. No All NBA team for JB. He's coming out for the rest of these playoffs. Honestly, you're right. This could be the best thing that happens for the Celtics is JB getting snubbed because that boy about to come out, really, really looking to make a statement. So, again, game 2 is tomorrow night, back at TD Garden at 8:00 tip off. That's on ESPN. The Celtics were able to walk away with a thriller overtime win at home, 133 to 128. Jason Tatum led all scorers with 36 points. He added on 12 rebounds and 4 assists. Jrue Holiday was right behind him. He had 28, 8, and 7. And then Jaylen Brown, he had 26 points in a huge clutch bucket. One of 7 Mike Breen's double bang calls. If you're watching it, you went at the Garden. One of 7 Mike Breen double bang, and you know how iconic Mike Breen's call is. So again, guys, we will see you tomorrow night live for Celtics Post Game Live. I'm Rob. Next to me is my man Franco, guys. And until next time,